Is your business doing well enough to support the income that you want as an owner? Do you get a renewed sense of energy and hope every year when you start, but you're still stuck on that crazy cycle? It still ends up the same way. I want you to know it's not about buying a new truck. It's not about having the nicest equipment if you're still doing all the work. Brandon Griffin, founder and CEO of Triangle Pro Painting, shares how investing in coaching and business training drove him to financial freedom and a better quality of life for not only him, but his team and organization. Fear of change and this little thing called ego, I can do it better myself, gets in the way and ultimately prevents you from the life that you deserve. I want you to have more in life, and I want you to have more in your business. Start by listening to this episode. This is Help, I'm a Contractor podcast. Hi, I'm Seth Lewis. I am a blue-collar business coach. Finally, someone that understands what contractors actually go through. My goal and vision is to connect business owners with knowledge while tackling some of the industry's toughest challenges. Please subscribe to my content and let's support each other to create awareness for our industry. Check out what I have going on at www.bluecollarbusinesscoach.net. Check out my book that has helped business owners across the country change their business and their life. But for now, it's time for the show. Let's get it. Hey, Brandon, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining.
Seth, yeah, thanks for having me, man.
How's your day going so far?
Going good, man. Going good. Business is good and life's good.
Got all the crews out running and, running each way, making it happen today.
Everybody's getting it done, man. Yeah.
That's awesome. So I got to ask you to start, being a painting contractor, what is the myth? What is something that you continually run into with customers? We all have them in different industries, but what's that one thing that when you go to sell something or you meet with a customer, they're always giving you this goofy objection? It's a myth that's held in their head and you just got to bust it. What is it?
That's an interesting question. Well, one that comes to the top of my mind, and this is most of the time the case with people that I'd say are more old-fashioned. You come out and do a bid and they'll say, now nobody's going to come out here and spray my house, right? You're going to do it all by hand and brush it, right? They get the idea, this myth in their head that if their house isn't hand brushed, it's just not going to be a good job. It's not going to last as long or something like that. And, it's 2022. Sprayers and technology have come a long way, just like computers or anything else with tech. So I usually tell my customers, you can read right on the back of any professional painting can, Benjamin Moore, Sherwin-Williams can be applied by brush, roll, or spray. Being that we do a high volume of homes and, it just usually makes more sense on an exterior of a house, especially the body, the siding. It usually makes sense to spray it. And so I tell customers, as long as the surface is prepped properly, we're not spraying over dirt, everything is washed, and the surface is prepped, caulked, anything is filled. A spray technique when done professionally is going to last just as long as if it was brushed or rolled. But they get this idea in their head that, if somebody sprays my house, it's just going to be a cheap job, a wham bam job. And, maybe some contractors in the past have, sprayed over dirt or a dirty house and, it didn't last as long or something. But, good thing about a spray technique is you don't have a bunch of brush marks or, lines and stuff all over the house as if it was brushed. So spraying it gives you a more uniform finish and it will last just as long when done professionally as if brushed or rolled. So that's one myth we hear a lot of the time, and we have to kind of educate our customers as to why it's not true.
That's awesome. It's so interesting when you look at the mindset. We're going to talk a little bit about that today with some of the market stuff that's happening and how behaviors and what customers are thinking. So I think that's really a great lead into just what we're going to talk about later. But I'd like you to just introduce yourself, where you're located, what you do, your background, how you got into this business, and just go from there.
Yeah. All right. Well, my name is Brandon Griffin. I am the founder and CEO of Triangle Pro Painting, Inc. We're based out of Raleigh, North Carolina. We're in an area called the Triangle. So Raleigh is surrounded by other cities, Cary, Durham, Chapel Hill, and all these other little sub-cities. So it's a great market for real estate, painting. I think North Carolina just got rated the #1 state, if I'm not mistaken, to start a business. It's a cool area. And I got into painting at a very young age. Right out of high school, I kind of got it as a summer gig. I remember my first house, I was in Cary, painting an exterior with a guy, and it was him and his dad. And they taught me the old fashioned ways. We did most stuff by brush and roll. And I didn't know what I was doing, but it was fun. They listened to rock music and we were outside, and it was just a cool feeling, working with your hands. And so I kind of fell in love with it. I wasn't very good at it. I remember him teaching me early on how to tape and try to cut a straight line, and I'd get paint all over the glass. But he was like, "Oh, that's okay, man. You'll pick it up. You'll learn." And I just kind of stuck with it and worked with him for a while, and then started, working with other companies, and eventually started working with more not smaller outfits. I started working with bigger companies, and we do some commercial work. I remember some of the jobs we did, like GlaxoSmithKline. We painted inside of a prison one time and had to get ID clearance and stuff. So I was just kind of fascinated with, wow, I just thought painting was just slapping some paint on something, but in fact, it can get pretty technical, and it is a much needed trade. So as I got older, I got really good at it. And fast forward, decades later, I had a good job painting and stuff like that, but I wanted to start a business, and I saw a lot of problems with some of the companies I'd worked for in the past. And, I thought, what if we could create a company that had systems in place and could give, customers a good experience at scale. I started having visions of stuff like that, and I became passionate about it. And, we started the company about 5 years ago. And I came into the company, knowing a lot about painting, but not a lot about business. So, the first year or so was kind of rough. Just basically doing work based off referrals and word of mouth. And but I invested in myself. Took a chance. I said, bought into some courses and training, and that really paid off. Ended up kind of getting an education outside of going to college for it. And that's just helped me tremendously. We're doing really good. We have multiple teams, production manager, sales reps, sitting in my office manager's chair now. So, we're doing good. And one of my goals was, I didn't want to keep painting. I'm in my 40s now, and I just didn't want to be climbing ladders and being on the outside of a house way up in the air, sweating in the summer. That was just one of my personal goals. And I've been able to achieve that. And I still vet all the crews that come in, and my production manager used to be a painter, so I still am very passionate about the quality, and I love the craft. But I just wanted to be able to step outside of doing the work and actually working on the business, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's really an awesome story, because there's so many people that actually get stuck in the truck, as I call it, and they can never get out of that. What I think is really interesting, I'd like you to maybe tell us a little bit more about, is in the idea of this investing in self, because I feel like that's the last place people typically think. They do everything else. They'll spend $80,000 on a truck,
Yeah.
but they don't spend a dime on themselves. So for people that are listening that are saying, I'm the person that doesn't spend a dime on myself, but I buy an $80,000 truck. I'd like to take a moment and kind of give your insights to how that changed your world. Because when you're
Absolutely.
stuck in the truck, you just think that that's the most important thing. And people will just put cash and loans and everything to all this equipment, but your greatest asset is you. So Tell me how you kind of came about that and then what it did in your business, because there's so many people right now that are struggling with that and they don't see the value.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great topic. Well, I was that guy. I thought, man, if I could just buy a better sprayer, if I had the, the best equipment and a nicer truck, people would think that get that visual that I'm super professional and I'm just going to get more work. But the thing is I was still the guy doing all the work, no matter what equipment I had or what truck I drove. Sure, I had other people working with me, but it was kind of like a single team. And you just can't do but so much work like that. And, for me personally, where I was at was, I was married. I had a newborn at the time. I have an older daughter too. And I thought, man, for me personally, I wanted more financial freedom. I wanted more freedom of time, and how am I going to do that if my mindset back then was better sprayer, better truck, more hours, more work, more work. I'm going to get a great reputation, do more work. But I was really limiting myself like that. So I started, doing research, and I thought to myself, what's possible? What's the next place that I can take this? And I stumbled across, some training and a course, and looked into it, and it sounded promising. And I just took a chance, man. I took a risk. I thought no risk, no reward. If nothing changes, nothing changes. And I was kind of stuck on that hamster wheel of, I call it hamster wheel of death, like just continuing to grind in and out every single week. Yeah, get a nicer truck, nicer sprayer, but still the same pattern. Um, and when I invested in myself and in learning more about my trade and business, everything changed. Number one, I got coaching from people that had already been in my shoes and been where I was before and where I was headed, and had made a lot of the mistakes that I was potentially about to run into. And so I was able to get coached into, hey man, maybe here's a different idea you could try. Maybe you could try, having your in-house crews and try some subcontracting also. There are good subcontractors out there. Here's how you find them. Here's the processes to do that, to replicate the type of quality you want to give to your customers and to your community. So I just did that, and one thing at a time. You can't learn it all overnight, but I just started to commit to that, and things started to rapidly change. I learned how to put in place and delegate other people into some of the things that I was doing to free up my time. So I would think about what are the most valuable things that I can do with my time, and how can I delegate the rest? And I just started kind of spreading that out, and growing the business instead of just working more hours. And through that process, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I'm like, oh my God, I'm so grateful that I invested in myself and invested in coaching and, learning how to grow this business. Because yeah, I mean, today, if I want to take time off and go on vacation, it's nothing, purchases that I used to only dream about, I can do those today. And not only that, but we're able to start building a company that other people love. Other people love to work here. Customers are still extremely happy. We're gaining tons of 5-star reviews, and I'm not the one doing all the work. I had this mindset that if I don't do it, it's not going to be perfect. No one's going to be able to do it like me. And that was another myth, that I was just telling myself.
Man, I love that. I really do, because that myth just keeps people stuck, and you get stuck because you just can't let go. And it's really a mindset thing. It's really just, and I'm always encouraged when I see the people that have broke through that, because it really is a struggle. That is tough in that thing. If you've grown a business or you started with one, and you weren't just somebody that just was an investor throwing a bunch of money at something, we've all been through that. We've all thought that we were the best and nobody could do it better. But like, I'm blown away by how many people do it better than we
Yeah.
do. And it is so exciting. It's so energizing. It gets me fired up, because that's what it's about. And if you can let go of that, everything changes. I'd like to look at that moment, because there's a crossroads that always happens with business owners. They think they should do it, but they don't ever end up going through with the coaching or taking the opportunity. So I'd kind of like to unpack that a little bit and just see, like, how can we help somebody that believes that they do the work, that that's where the key is, where that new truck or that new trailer or sprayer or lift or whatever they're using, bulldozer, is actually the ticket. Because yeah, a bulldozer's, 200 and some $1,000 or whatever. Yeah, it's a lot of money and they view that as success, but they're not getting out. So how do you speak to somebody? How can you help somebody see that they need that? Because right now they're not valuing it. The majority, I would say probably 90% plus of blue collar business owners don't value the coaching and the stuff that they can do. So this is really good. And I just want to stay here for a minute because you somehow you were able to commit before you knew, because now it's easy. Now it's easy to look back and say that was the greatest decision that I've made in my business. But I just want to go back to that thing of, like, how is somebody that doesn't see that right now? What are maybe some pointers or tips that they could do to get through? Do you just jump in? Do you do some research, or do you just say it got to be better than I'm doing it now? What are your thoughts?
Well, I can just share my experience. I was that guy for decades, just continuing to do the work. And like I said, thinking that maybe if I invest in some more equipment or if I just work harder, that something's going to change. But I knew subconsciously that's not the way, not where I want to be with freedom of my time and financial freedom. It's just not the way. But I was a little bit fearful of that change. I think that's what it is. For me, I was kind of gripped by the fear of change, and it's just daunting to think, how am I going to grow a business if I do that? And if I try to start doing that, it'll take away from my time, that my whole time where I've got to go out and do all the work. So it was kind of just, yeah, like you said, some research, um, and really a desire to change and taking a risk. I took small pieces first, like what I did. Maybe this would help somebody. I didn't totally quit what I was doing. I invested in some coaching in a course, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing with my guys, but I'm gonna start in my spare time. I'm gonna start this coaching and start this training. And week by week, I started seeing, okay, well, what I learned here is that I can actually trust this guy and delegate this to him, and maybe he'll surprise me. I feel like I had everything too tight on a leash around me, and when I just let go a little bit, what it did, surprisingly, was it really inspired others to know, hey, this guy trusts me, he believes in me, and it was starting to build some teamwork there. Real teamwork, not just me telling people what to do, and I know best and I can do it all myself. Um, and so, yeah, but just a little bit at a time, I started to delegate things, and then talking back with, I have a coach, so talking back with him, hey, this is where I'm at, this is what I'm fearful of, this is what I'm doing. He would tell me, hey man, here's what you should probably try. And then as soon as I started, when I learned how to form separate teams and trust that and delegate that to people, that's when things started to really shift, because I wasn't the one doing all the work. And then the next stage in my trade anyway was getting somebody to monitor that production, the quality control. And so I just had to find the right person for that. And once I started doing that, I was free from the work, and then I was free from observing the work all the time, stopping by day to day. Then I just had to start working on sales. So it was just like one thing at a time. And when I saw one thing working, I had so much faith now. Oh, that worked. Oh, maybe the next thing's going to work, you know, but I just had to take action. I had to start somewhere. Um, and like I said, that's just taking the risk part and the desire to want change enough to stop doing what I was doing.
So do you think it has to be like it gets to the worst spot and you just kind of hit rock bottom? Or do you think you can recognize before then? How would somebody recognize before they hit rock bottom? Because when you hit rock bottom, you're like, man, everything's falling apart. Hopefully you don't go out of business or anything else that would happen. But what are some cues, some ideas that say, hey, maybe if this is happening in your business, it might be time to look at either coaching or some other type of education to better yourself?
Yeah. Well, for me, it was starting to get burnt out. For me, I was just working way too many hours. And I had that mindset that, like, if I just do more, I'll achieve more. So that was one of my signs, like, man, something's got to change. My body and my mind were just burning out. And then another thing was my goals as I got older, financially and for my family and stuff, were not in line with what I was able to earn, by myself in my trade. So that was a cue for me, like, hey, um, if I want anything better financially, for my family, you know, I've got to learn a better way to do this, to be able to earn more income and grow my business. So I don't know if that helps, but those were a
No,
couple
that
things for me.
those are great. What do you think? I mean, and one of the things that you mentioned was the fear, and that absolutely is one. And it's funny when you have these buzzwords, especially in the contractor space, people don't like to use them because, like, "Ooh, not me. That's not me," which is some of my favorite
Yeah.
commentary. But when you think about this, what are some of the other things that prevent people? So fear's one. Do you think that's the main one? The fear of change is one of the things that you mentioned. Is there anything else that you think or contributes to people from wanting to make this change? I believe that they want it. I mean, if you're listening to this and you're saying, okay, I want, I want what, Brandon has. I want that for my business. I don't think anybody would ever deny or say that they don't want it. But again, what I'm looking at here is it's that decision. It's the thing to say, well, why are you not taking the step? So is there anything beyond fear, or do you think that's the main thing, or any other thoughts of what actually holds people back?
Yeah. Well, another one, that I hear a lot is ego or stubbornness. So just thinking, maybe my way. That sounds good, but I'm just going to try it my way. I'm going to try it this way because it feels more comfortable, right? It doesn't feel comfortable to get outside of ourselves and shift our whole behavior and everything that we're so used to. It's uncomfortable. And so I think it's a little bit of the ego kind of saying, we can just keep trying it this way, or my way will work eventually. And then, and from what I've heard from a lot of guys, is, my way just kept failing. I tried so many different things. And then eventually you hit that place where, it's just, oh man, I've got to try something else.
Yeah, I think that's a great one. Ego definitely gets in the way to say, I can do this. And one of the things that there's this false sense of hope. And one of the ways I describe it is at the beginning of the year. Last year, whenever it becomes like time when you're, if people aren't doing their books and they go to their accountant, which is not, I don't recommend that. And then they're like, hey, did I make money this year? Terrible way to do business. Let me just put a disclaimer out there. But it's it's the idea of, you know, how do you I guess what I want to look at is that at the end of the year, they create a new plan and then they say, well, I have hope for next year. Next year is going to be better. But after 10 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, they keep, and that's what I go back to that. I call it the crazy cycle, the hamster wheel. You just keep repeating the same thing year after year after year and hoping that we get different results. But that hope is so powerful because I've been there before where you say, this is the hope of this year. You get excited about it, you get energized, and then you're like, well, it didn't work out that way. So you got to recognize that there's change and you got to make change. But I think that ego says, this is a year I can do it. So I think if you're listening and you're saying, I've tried that a couple of years, but if you're saying that this year is going to be the year and you really haven't made drastic changes, it's not going to be the year. I don't like to be the Debbie Downer, but I need to do it right here. So change the pattern, change the way, and you're going to see different results like your story. And I love that because you're getting real results and it drives you to financial freedom and independence, which is what all business owners are looking for. It's nothing else. That's it. That's what they want.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, the hope. And I think, we compare ourselves to maybe somebody else. Maybe somebody else did try something the hard way and good old hard work and determination and skill. But I think sometimes we can trick ourselves into comparing with other people, and then again we have that illusion or delusion that it falls right back into my way, doing things my way. So yeah, I mean, false hope like that can be it can be a powerful thing. But yeah, you're right. Looking at the facts, if we're repeating the same thing kind of year over year with minimal changes, I mean, it's kind of a good predictor of the future, right? Because if there's not much change going into that, you can't really expect much different results.
Yeah, I want to dive into showing how this can be applicable. So people will say, okay, what is the value of a coach? What is the value of getting that education, investing in yourself? And I think you have a great example with one of your sales people or your team, because, and I'll let you kind of expand of like what happened, but I think part of the coaching was able you to handle the situation better, which has a huge impact on, profitability, what's going on, relationships, all that stuff. So I'm trying to connect here. Okay, you make a decision and you say, I don't know, I could use a little bit of help here, and this would help my business, or it's not going the way I want. Now I'm trying to show, okay, these are some of the areas that coaching can really help you with. We'll be right back to the show. I want to invite you to my Blue Collar Mastermind group. This is a group of blue collar business owners who share input on tough topics, support, celebrate, and learn from each other. The world's best business owners, leaders, actors, athletes, and musicians all have coaches or are part of a similar group to grow and succeed. If you want more from your business, have limited time, don't want to break the bank, this group is for you. Learn more and apply to the group at bluecollarbusinesscoach.net. These are some of the areas that coaching can really help you with. Without it, or without that support, you could really make some missteps. So could you share a little bit about, the sales rep that you were working with and, the scenario there?
Yeah, absolutely. So, now that we have a business, there's different roles in the business. One of them is our sales reps, who actually goes out and does the estimating, or you call them an estimator. And in my coaching, and in our business, there's a process to that. There's a sales process. Well, the guy was kind of in a slump, sort of not having the best couple weeks, and it was kind of a pattern. Now, without coaching, I wouldn't know how to react to that. I'd just say, this guy, he's not cut out for it, or I wouldn't really have any direction with how to handle that. But through good coaching and in self-investment, like we're talking about here, I was able to kind of go back and say to him real calmly, just say, hey man, you've been doing great out here. I do see kind of a pattern. Let's talk about it. Let's see how it can be helpful. Instead of, attacking him or saying, he's doing something wrong, because that's my responsibility as an owner and a leader, is to, try to help this guy to succeed. So we went back through that sales process, and, a couple examples were, hey, okay, the estimate's booked. Have you done an initial call with them just to kind of pre-qualify? And we have a little script of like, to make sure it's the right fit for us and for them. Have you been doing that with, your estimates before they come up? When you're at the sales process, have you been doing, XYZ and building rapport and what we call a need selling satisfaction cycle, where you're kind of pointing out the need to a client, like, hey, you got peel and paint here, you got caulking that needs to be done over here. Did you know about that? Oh, no one ever pointed that out to me. Would you like for us to handle that for you? They're like, oh yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for asking me that. Little subtle things like that. And I just kind of quizzed them, like, hey, have you've been doing, these things right here? He said, actually, no, I have not been. Man, I've been so busy, I kind of forgot. I haven't had much time to do my initial calls and this and that. And I said, well, look, let's just implement these couple things right here. Let's try it. Let's see what happens. Let's go ahead and try to start doing an initial call with people. And when you're there, building a little bit more rapport and something like a follow up. I told him work on more follow up. When he did that, when he implemented those few things, the very next week, he had his biggest sales week to date. The guy sold, and not to brag, but this is just incredible. For one guy, he sold over 100K that week. And I was just super proud of him, super stoked about, man, this coaching is, I mean, how priceless is that? You pay for coaching in a program, and you hope you made a good investment, but I can tell you, it's just been priceless, to invest in self and the business like that. And plus that guy is so happy, he's like so proud and happy of the company he's working with and working for. And there's just so many benefits to coaching. And that's just one example.
That's, I mean, that story is really powerful. And I think that's the reason that you do it and why people should look at it and consider it immediately. I always tell people I don't care who they work with. It's just a matter of you got to work with somebody, because when you're in the day to day, and I played basketball, I played football. And one of the things is when you're in the game, you can't see what's going on. You can't see the way that a coach can see the outside perspective and see what the players are doing. If you think about a football game, they look from the press box and they can see all the plays and everything moving around. For basketball, you can see if somebody's cutting you back door or what the plays are. So it's just that outside perspective. And I love what you said there. I mean, those little tweaks. So I want to unpack this, because just people don't always see how the values, and I just want to be super clear. So you have this thing that this person maybe wasn't performing the way that you wanted. Now, that's costing the business an opportunity of, let's say that the 100,000 in that week that it costs the business. Not only that, you might actually have the right person. So everybody will say, well, you need the right person in the right seats and all this type of stuff. But they always put that on the other person. They put that on the other person instead of looking at themselves and saying, as an organization, what are we not doing? What am I not doing to help this person out? Because you might have the right seat, but the right person, but maybe we're not doing what we need to do. So through coaching, that outside perspective in the right way, they can say, hey, maybe you just need to walk through with this person, like in your example. Now all of a sudden you did that, and now everybody's happy.
Yeah.
And you're winning. That builds culture. It builds energy. And now that person is going to go on and continue to do well for themselves. So not only are you making impact for, the organization, but that person financially for them, it just helped them be a better person. And that's what's so powerful. So that coaching translates from not just you, but it goes to them, which goes to their family. And, you can just keep spreading it out. And it's like, it is
Absolutely.
priceless.
Yeah, it's priceless. Well, number one, without the coaching and what I've invested in, I didn't really have a sales process. That's one thing is I would just kind of be like, hey man, I do great work. We do great work. And here, my language was just different. I was like, hey, here's what we do when we come out. We just do this and do that. I didn't really ask anybody what they wanted. So the sales process itself was awesome to learn that, and how to recruit the right people. But then also when you get the right people, how to keep them and how to give them the support that they need. So you keep that retention. You keep valuable people here, and you give them the most support that they need to be the best version of themselves as well. Just to, like you said, improve their life, their family's life. And it just goes hand in hand, when the leader or the owner of the company is investing in himself and the business, it just falls and trickles right back down to everything else in the business, the processes, the people that are recruited in, the quality of support and training that they get. And that in turn all goes to a better experience for the customer.
Yeah. And I think like you said in the beginning, you got to look at where your most impact is in your value. And this is that mindset thing, is you think that your most impact in your value is out on one single job. But that's just the craziest thing ever to think, because if you could replay the last 3 minutes of this conversation and listen specifically of all the areas that you made impact on as the owner. That's really speeding up. I like to call it momentum, but the energy that moves the organization forward, because you are your greatest asset And when you invest in that, it just multiplies through your organization, and it's really, really special.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Completely agreed.
So if you don't have a coach or an advisor or somebody that you're working with, that's your number one homework or assignment when you're listening to this, is find somebody that you can work with, find somebody you're comfortable with, and really just dive into that, because that's really a great starting point, and it will pay you back more than any investment you've ever made. I promise you. I guarantee that. Um, with the mindset piece, and we talked a little bit about the sales process, I think it's, mindset is through and through this, as we've been talking about it. I want to switch a little bit to the customers and talk a little bit the current state of the market. How are customers thinking? What are some of the things that you've noticed, and maybe how you've have to present? Is all the talk of interest and inflation and all the different things that are happening, does that change this sales process anyway? And what have you seen, or how do you recommend overcoming some of that stuff?
Yeah. It's a very good topic, very interesting, very relevant to probably anybody listening. You know, we talked about this with our coaches and some other people about a week ago, and what we got out of it was to be careful about agreement reality. Agreement reality. When enough people talk about something and for whatever reason start saying it's true, it becomes true even if it's not. And I'm definitely not saying definitely there's some inflation going on and stuff like that for sure. But look, tradesmen, people still need work done. People still need plumbing. People still need roofs. People still need painting. If you don't do that stuff, you lose your biggest investment, your home, or commercial work, businesses. That stuff has to be maintenance. It has to be taken care of. So what I've experienced, we do a lot of advertising and different things like that, and we have noticed some behavioral pattern changes. So maybe, social media and the news and stuff like that, you watch too much of that stuff, it can really spook some people, and get them thinking different ways. So I think, in our trade anyway, some people might have had that mindset where they were like, earlier this year, yeah, we need to get the house painted. We need to get it on the schedule before it gets too cold later in the year. And then they start hearing all this stuff about recession and inflation and, just crazy, crazy stuff. And they think, maybe we can just hold off a little bit and see what happens, so they kind of get that, it's almost like a little bit of a hesitation or procrastination type thing. And, so and as far as the sales process, we still present it the exact same way. We're still like, look, this is most of the time, this is a need. If you've got peeling paint on a house, or if you're a roofer, if you got shingles that are damaged and possibility for water intrusion and stuff like that, it's got to be presented to the customers. Look, this is still a need. This is still something that you got to address, and that's what we can help you with. So for us, we have not really paid much attention to it. Try not to pay much attention to it at all. If anything, we just re-strategize a little bit, and we say, okay, maybe there's some stuff going on, maybe not, but we're not going to buy into the agreement reality, like I'm talking about, like something really bad is happening, and oh man, we got to be really careful and not spend any money, and maybe we need to start cutting back on this and that. So we're not playing into that fearful mindset. We're just going to keep on doing what we're doing.
That's a great point. When you hear that, the agreement reality, are you able to bring it up in that way, or do you just kind of do it in a subtle way, like just saying this is still a need and can ease that? Because what I think is really powerful here is the idea of